The Sun King Invitational. I mean, it sounds like me at the beach if you wanted to describe me, but here's somebody if you need any more proof that he's hung. Look at this, that confidence. And, you know, people see guys like us doing things like that and they say they're compensating for something. I've been told that. And, you know, I used to have, when I had a car, when I had a big truck, I had to use a ladder to get into it. And people would say, you're compensating for something. Oh, yeah, I'm compensating for the fact that my is on the floor without this ladder, and you know teenagers would not be nice to me about that. But the final stretch, we got our first peek at Dark Shel, and I don't know if this is here to stay, but he's got a brand new look as he becomes sort of a free agent in the offseason, announces that he's hunting down his brother. You know, he kind of is stealing from his brother in a sense. The sunglasses cover the dork, and we saw that with Slam Carter in his interview, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Look at this, Bert, the MK2 prospect. He is in a battle with CBK. He's saying, I'm going to send you back to the injury reserve. And CBK has a message for him. Runs into him after the whistle, so to speak. Head off. That guy looked like he was out of his freaking mind. So Slam Carter, second place. Pam running away with it in first place. Absolutely incredible stuff. But whether he's doing well or not, he looks good on the track. Slam Carter. And boy, oh boy, those glasses, they just make you look so cool. But Shel Carter out there battling with Pam, looking good, and just action, action, action. I feel like a director right now saying that all the time. But as we go, look at this, Bert. I don't know, this kid, it's not like he was on the top of the podium all the time, but there's something about him. You see those flips, you see that car, he's got style to him. And let's look at the final stretch. Elle, the bullet, flying out there. Pam takes the shortcut. You see Shel Carter fly over her. She's got a bomb and she's got a little... Ooh, Elle gets hit. He took out Shel Carter, but Shel avoids the bomb. And let's look at this. This is just a nice little replay to go back. Some great driving, flying over Pam. It's too bad that Elle ruined it, but it looks like even if Elle hadn't hit him with the boomerang, Pam had that bomb waiting for him, so maybe he got a little bit lucky and saved from falling down from first to third or something, finishes with a second. But look at this. Anyway, you know, but, speaking of people being hung and things like that, boy, oh boy, lost my train of thought on this one. Just thinking about that interview with Slam and Lucky. Boy, to be in that room. Anyway, speaking of being in a room, I'm not living in a house anymore once again, which is difficult, but I have moved into the studio, and it's nice, you know. People, they think that I'm working all the time, and look at this, going into the final stretch, and Shel Carter, or Dark Shel as he's called now, it seems, he's just taking it easy, a bit way up in first, and he is just making things interesting on the final event with a nice little first blow sheet. We see him flying in here, and he's had some encouraging races recently. Look at him crossing the line and having fun. Third place, you love to see it. Bert in fourth. But here is one of the most tragic scenes. King Midas, he came back, he raced amazingly the week before, and he just returns to being... It goes beyond a blooper reel, folks. This is depressing to see. He was in second place. He was having fun. He had the boombox over the gap. And this is where it becomes... It defies logic. He slows down and he goes into 10th place. You wonder what kind of, implications this has. Betting is legal. I would look into that, folks. That's a little concerning. But anyway, I've moved into living with the studio. I had a problem with my ex-wife and her husband. Let's call it the Cupid incident. I was wearing a pair of angel wings and not much else, holding a bow and arrow. But anyway, you stay in the studio, and sleeping in here is nice because people think, initially the first week I was getting a lot of compliments. People are saying, you're working these 100-hour work weeks, Mike. You're in here the first person here. Sometimes you're just in there sleeping in the booth. And going into the final stretch, Shel Carter. This is a big battle. He's in first place. He uses that mushroom to bring out the protection, but another red shell coming from Midas. And it is basically off to the races for King Midas. He's going down the hill. It seems like Shel does not have an answer for him. Nothing coming towards King Midas. Throws the ball forward for no reason, but it's still good enough to come in first. Elle sneaks in there ahead of Shel at a first, second, third. Unfortunately, Shel Carter falls off there. He could have potentially picked up and tied Pam had he gotten first, but it just wasn't in the cards. But, I was saying you're working those 100-hour work weeks. And then the second week they go, you know what? We were thinking about it, and look at this, the blue shell coming, Shel Carter in first place. They sort of say, you have recorded one highlight segment, we don't let you do the drift anymore. So we're wondering where those 100 hours are going. And I don't really have an answer for them, but let's go into the final stretch. Pamela in second place, Shel Carter up in front. He tries to avoid that blue shell, but he cannot. That blue shell throws forward. We think that he's gotten the person in first place and regained it, but he is going in second place. So let's break down a little segment I said it was, this photo is not what I'm talking about. This is not a breakdown. I did not have a breakdown when I went to Mexico, but Pam flies in there. She gets the blue shell, but she uses that mushroom at the perfect time and flies out. And we look at this, who we thought was in first place. It was actually Midas flying into the blue shell explosion. Terrible work by him. He had a second place or even a first easily, and he ends up in seventh place. And let's look at some chaos happening behind the scenes. Ooh, Lucky flying into the wall, and Beloshi just looking like he's going in there to crush him. Could have been dangerous, but everything's okay. But this mushrooms only plus blue shell event, there's going to be a lot of speed on the track, and not everyone can handle it. But yeah, so I mean, it's been tough, and I do want to move out of the studio because, as I say, lots of people are asking questions that I can't answer. Where are my 100 hours a week going? Why am I, they come into the booth in the morning to do their job. Why are you asleep at the panel? And why do I wake up in sort of a sweat and start pushing all the dials up and down, pretending like I've been doing something? But look at Pam, the first place in the last event, and nothing different here. 2 first place. We haven't had a perfect event all season. Shel Carter came close earlier this year, but Pam is on the right track right now. We go into, Shel running Midas into some big trouble, and another thing blowing up CBK. Boy, oh boy, that is difficult to see. The final stretch, and there's some exciting stuff happening. Pam up in first with a blue shell. She's flying around the corners, and she makes the decision. She needs that mushroom work, so she throws off, and she throws the blue shell as soon as he passes. Shel Carter beats the first one, but no mushrooms left for the second one. Pam with a savvy move. Lucky, but savvy. That second blue shell coming out, that's what saved her, but great work. And we see the Yoshis battling it out here. And boy, oh boy, this is just intense between Beloshi and T-Money, and that wheelie across the line. Ooh, that is fun to watch. But I'm thinking of trying to move out of the studio, and I'm talking to women on Hinge, and it's fun. Not going well, but it is fun. I try to have a positive mindset about things, and it's tough when your prompts are sort of like, dating me is like, can I stay at your house? Or, I want someone who will let me stay at their house. Or I spend most of my money on, I'd rather not get into it. So things like that. But look at this, Pamela. She's got 3 first place. She blue shells herself. She was in first place, but with 2 blue shells. She knew she needed those mushrooms to get going. Shel Carter dodges the first one. He has a mushroom, but he cannot get the second dodge. Devastating. Pamela is flying in there. It looks like she has got the perfect event wrapped up. Shel and Slam battling for second place, and Shel Carter is just dejected. He does not get those boost pads he needs. He does not get the stuff he gets, but I mean, second place. And the thing is, it was that Pam, a perfect event for her. 6 first places out of the 8 events that they were racing. Shel Carter, on the other hand, Mr. Reliable, did not miss the podium once, but at the end of the day, Pamela gets 2 firsts, and she clinches the MKS championship this season with 1 weekend to go. It's exciting stuff to see Pamela do what she's done, but obviously we're going to be getting into the headlines. I don't usually like to tip my cap to them, but there's some stuff in there that maybe overshadows what should be a big, exciting weekend for Morton Construction. But It's just one of those things. Pamela is a hell of a racer. She came out of nowhere. We had her really ranked quite low on the boards, but she's been dominant all year. And it's a combination. She's got the luck, she's got the skill, and it just has been sort of a magic ride for her to start her MKS career. But there's trouble brewing around that. And as you look at it, that lucky team money divide, it looks like it's going to be too much to overcome in the final weekend. But Lucky had some difficult events this week. He wasn't playing his best, and I expect him to pick it up, definitely. So Team Money had an opportunity had she placed higher in some of these events to really close that gap, but I think it's going to be tough. 9 points is a big gap unless you're getting on the podium and Lucky's really falling off. But we all obviously have the event in following the season to fight for those final 2 spots for Champions League, and I really do think I'm going to put my money on Team Money to be one of those spots. But then there's the battle at the bottom, CBK and Bebo. There's 1 weekend left. I think we don't want to be Mr. Irrelevant, so to speak. And for CBK, I think it's big. That's a racer that we talked a big game about at the start of the season, and for him to be behind Bebo, Bloshi to be up there ahead of him, it's one of those things where, he was talked about in the same breath as Lucky starting the season. And, I've heard a little bit about his training regimen in the off season, and there's some exciting stuff going on there. But, I want to see a big, exciting final weekend. I want him to get some momentum going into the next season. And, this play-in tournament, so to speak, for the final 2 spots is open to everyone. So you never know. You never know with CBK. It could happen. He could sneak in there and then be Mr. Cinderella when it comes to Champions League. But let's move on to the headlines. Some less fun things going on there. Mine is talking about a day of reckoning coming. MKS investigation finding disturbing culture of harassment and reckless behavior led by Pam and Lucky. And this might be what he was hinting at. And just to dive into some of the things the report's saying, Lucky coming in dragging a wooden paddle around the dressing room, seeking out asses to spank with them. And you think about the rookies usually being the ones getting hazed. Lucky flipped the script on this one, and he became the hazer. Drunk while racing. I think that's something that extends well beyond Lucky and Pam. Morton covering up Pam crashing a speedboat into a charity event. The sexual tension Shel alluded to. Midas, being invited, Pam saying that they're going to rekindle their marriage, only to show up and see that she's feeding Slam chicken fingers. Falsely claiming to be in Playboy, showing photos, constantly wearing an open bathrobe, so it's not just contained to the hallways of the hotel. Talking about being hung, so another confirmation of that. And to be honest, I think that there's no appropriate time in the workplace to do this. And I do want to say that, and I agree with the HR on this. However, lying about being hung in the workplace, that should be an extra level of punishment. There should be 2 separate things. Talking about being hung in the workplace and being hung, inappropriate. However, talking about being hung in the workplace and not being hung, perhaps it gets moved up to immediate firing. Talking about being hung in the workplace and being hung, you get a demerit. It's something on your record. You say, don't do that. We don't need to hear about that. However, I spoke in my piece on that. Morton putting a bounty to target a dork racer. It's Bounty Gate. I don't think it's going to catch as much steam as the original Bounty Gate. But, and then the tub thing on there, I don't know the logic of that. I don't know what happened. But honestly, it's one of those things that it just seems like Shel was likely whistleblowing, and they said, we've got enough information. And he said, oh, yeah, well, I also, I couldn't get out of the tub for 6 hours. And they said, okay, the tape recorder's still on. So anyway, this is disturbing stuff, and it doesn't end there for Morton. We saw the announcements earlier this season. Waluigi Pinball was going to be off the MKS circuit. And MKS had planned a couple random choose events. Anything could be thrown in there, and basically the racer's choice was randomly generated. And we happened to get 2 Waluigi pinballs in back-to-back weeks. This set off alarm bells, and Morton is currently under investigation for bribing racers to choose Waluigi pinballs, despite the safety concerns that are going on with it. So, not a good week for Morton and Morton Racing, despite the incredible job he's done this season. And that's really the difficult thing, is that off the track it seems like he's a mess. And that seems to be true about a lot of people. I can't help but be reminded of the quote, God saves his hardest battles for his strongest soldiers. And I know that's true for Morton, and it certainly feels like it's true for me these days. So I often feel like I am, leading the SEAL Team 6 team that took down Osama bin Laden. And Osama bin Laden, in this case, could represent my ability to own a home that doesn't sink or isn't driven by teenagers to the beach and driven into the water, or isn't a pool table that I am no longer allowed to sleep in, or isn't a studio. So that could be my sort of Osama bin Laden, but I am also an American, and I do finish the job. And that hardest battle, I will be raising the flag of Mike Austin victory, much like I think Morton has the potential to bounce back. So we'll see.